Jimmy, Wallace was more than just a name. He was a brave soldier, embodying the courage that many young men showed when they went off to fight in the Vietnam War. At only 30 years old, he had already seen and experienced things that most people could only imagine. Serving his country, he did what he believed was right, ready to protect the values that America stood for. However, when he returned home, the hero's welcome he had hoped for quickly faded into a harsh reality. Back in Atlanta, Jimmy faced challenges that loomed larger than the battles he fought overseas. He was a black man returning to a society rife with racism, where prejudice and discrimination replaced the respect he thought he had earned. In his daily life, he encountered not just the invisible scars of war but also glaring reminders of segregation and inequality. These experiences left him feeling isolated and frustrated. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, struggles such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, began to surface. Images from the war haunted him, while feelings of anger and sadness intertwined with memories of his service. His mind was a battlefield of its own, filled with questions that felt impossible to answer. Why was he still fighting? What did his sacrifices truly mean? With every encounter marked by racial injustice and personal turmoil, Jimmy wrestled with his sense of purpose. Life didn't seem fair, and this confusion would soon lead him to a breaking point, a moment that would resonate far beyond his own experience and echo through history. Little did he know, during an upcoming speech in Atlanta, his heart-wrenching question would profoundly change the lives of those around him. The return to civilian life was far from easy for Jimmy Wallace. Battling the emotional scars of war, he faced a relentless struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. This condition transformed his everyday experiences into overwhelming challenges. Memories of violence, fear, and chaos flooded his mind without warning, making it hard to focus on anything else. He often relived traumatic moments, like the sounds of gunfire and cries for help that echoed in his ears long after the battles had ended. These memories turned ordinary situations into triggers that left him feeling anxious and hyper-aware. Crowds, once a source of comfort, became suffocating reminders of the chaos he had witnessed in Vietnam. He felt detached from those around him, watching life unfold but not truly participating in it. The simplest tasks, like going to the grocery store or attending social gatherings, became daunting undertakings. Isolation crept into Jimmy's life as he struggled to communicate his feelings and experiences to family and friends who could not understand what he had been through. Instead of connection, he often felt judgment and disbelief, which deepened his sense of loneliness. As a black man returning home during a time of intense racial tension, this isolation was compounded by prejudice and discrimination that further alienated him from society. In addition to anxiety, Jimmy faced waves of anger and sadness that seemed unrelenting. It felt as if he were fighting two wars at once, one against the ghosts of his past and another against the injustices in the world surrounding him. These internal battles left him questioning the meaning of his sacrifices. The emotional toll was heavy, taking away any sense of peace or purpose he once had as a soldier. Little did he know, this turmoil would soon culminate in a moment that would connect him deeply with others who shared similar struggles. As Jimmy Wallace attempted to reintegrate into his community, he found himself confronting a harsh reality defined by racial tensions and discrimination. Although he had served his country bravely in Vietnam, the welcome he received was tainted by prejudice. Many Americans viewed black veterans like Jimmy through a lens colored by systemic racism, often dismissing their sacrifices and contributions. Instead of respect, he faced judgment based on the color of his skin, which compounded his feelings of isolation and frustration. In the streets of Atlanta, Jimmy encountered situations that reminded him daily of this racial divide. He was often met with disdain in stores and public places, where people would look at him with suspicion or refuse to acknowledge him altogether. Even returning to familiar neighborhoods brought new challenges as signs of segregation and inequality remained painfully evident. The sense of belonging he once felt seemed to slip further away each day. This racial discrimination weighed heavily on his psyche, intertwining with the symptoms of PTSD he was already battling. With every episode of anxiety or flashback to the war, memories of systemic oppression flashed before his eyes. Each time he faced hostility or disrespect, it deepened his internal conflict. How could he fight for a country that did not fight for him? He wrestled with feelings of anger and betrayal, unsure if his sacrifices had truly meant anything in a society still plagued by inequality. The emotional toll this discrimination took on him was immense, leaving Jimmy questioning not only his purpose but also the very values he once embraced as a soldier. As these struggles continued to mount, they set the stage for a moment where all his pain would coalesce into a powerful cry for recognition and change during an upcoming speech, a moment that would echo far beyond himself. On that fateful day in 1967, the atmosphere in Atlanta was charged with anticipation as people filled the auditorium for a significant speech addressing civil rights and social change. Activists, veterans, families, and community members gathered, united by a shared desire for progress and justice. The audience represented a tapestry of voices, black and white, young and old, all eager to hear words of hope and inspiration from those they admired. As the event began, a sense of camaraderie filled the room. Speeches were made, igniting the crowd's passion for change while highlighting the struggles faced by African Americans in a society rife with discrimination. Yet, amid this fervor, tension lingered in the air. The reality of racial tensions and injustice was palpable. Jimmy Wallace sat among them, listening intently but feeling increasingly uneasy. When it was his turn to speak, he walked to the front of the stage, clutching a microphone that felt heavy in his hand. He scanned the audience, recognizing faces of those who had faced similar battles and heartaches. As he began to share his experience of fighting in Vietnam and now battling personal demons, the weight of his emotions became overwhelming. Memories flooded back, intertwining with the anger and sadness he struggled to articulate. And then it happened. In a moment of raw vulnerability, Jimmy broke down and shouted, "What am I still fighting for?" His voice resonated in the hall like thunder, cutting through the noise and drawing immediate attention. The crowd fell silent, absorbing his pain and confusion as they witnessed one man's heartbreaking struggle. It was then that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who had been listening from the sidelines, took a step off the stage and approached Jimmy. This poignant moment, marked by deep compassion and mutual recognition, would change everything, not just for Jimmy, but for everyone present. As Jimmy Wallace stood before the audience, the weight of his experiences pressed heavily on him. The auditorium, filled with eager faces, suddenly felt suffocating. He had listened to others share their stories of struggle and hope, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in his own community. The echoes of war still lingered in his mind, intertwined with the harsh realities of racism he faced daily. Each moment only intensified his feelings of despair and confusion. As he began to speak, his voice trembled, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath his strong exterior. He spoke of the battles he had fought overseas and the invisible ones he faced back home. The pain of memories, explosions, fear, and sorrow flooded back, overwhelming him. Every word felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of his past was too much to bear. He recalled the pride he felt serving his country, only to return to a society that seemed to value him less than before. The intensity of his emotions reached a breaking point when he realized that all his sacrifices had been met with indifference. Frustration surged within him like a tidal wave. In that moment, surrounded by faces that should have provided comfort but instead felt like distant strangers, he couldn't contain himself any longer. With anguish in his voice, he shouted, "What am I still fighting for?" The words hung in the air, electrifying the room and silencing the crowd. His cry was not just a question, it was a profound expression of pain and longing for recognition. In that instant, Jimmy laid bare the struggles of countless others who felt unseen and unheard. The gravity of his outburst shifted the atmosphere entirely, creating a powerful connection that resonated deeply throughout the auditorium. It was a moment that would ripple through the hearts of everyone present and mark a turning point in Jimmy's life. As the silence of the auditorium settled in the wake of Jimmy's heart-wrenching outburst, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stepped forward with purpose and grace. The weight of the moment hung in the air, and every eye turned to him, sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. Dr. King, a beacon of hope and resilience for many, moved with compassion toward Jimmy, whose pain was palpable to everyone present. With a calm yet powerful presence, Dr. King approached Jimmy and reached out to him. He placed his travel Bible gently in Jimmy's hands, a gesture rich with significance. This Bible was more than just a book, it represented faith, strength, and the moral courage that had guided King throughout his own life. By placing it in Jimmy's grasp, Dr. King was not only offering support but also affirming Jimmy's dignity as a fellow warrior in the struggle for justice. "James," he said softly, his voice resonating with sincerity, "you fought for dignity. Let us fight for your peace." These words wrapped around Jimmy like a warm embrace, validating his sacrifices and acknowledging the deep struggles that lay beneath his outcry. In that transformative moment, the audience witnessed an extraordinary connection, a merging of personal pain with a collective call for change. The significance of Dr. King's gesture was profound. It demonstrated that Jimmy's fight was not one he had to undertake alone. Instead, he was part of a larger movement striving for equality and justice, not just for veterans like him but for all those who had suffered under systemic oppression. This act of solidarity ignited a sense of hope within Jimmy, offering him a glimpse of the peace he so desperately sought. As the crowd held its breath, they felt the power of love and unity in that sacred exchange, setting the stage for a new beginning in his life and the broader fight for civil rights. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, "You fought for dignity. Let us fight for your peace," carried a profound weight that resonated deeply with both Jimmy Wallace and the audience present. In this simple yet powerful statement, Dr. King recognized the sacrifices Jimmy had made as a soldier, affirming his courage and the dignity he had earned in battle. This acknowledgement was crucial for Jimmy, who had felt overlooked and devalued since his return home. It was not just a validation of his service, it was an invitation to embrace a shared struggle for peace and justice. By calling on the audience to join in the fight for Jimmy's peace, Dr. King connected individual pain to a collective cause. He emphasized that the journey toward healing and equality was not one that any single person could navigate alone. Rather, it required unity among all those who sought justice. This message sparked a flame of hope within the crowd, igniting their passion for change and inspiring them to stand alongside veterans like Jimmy in their quest for respect and recognition. The impact of Dr. King's words extended beyond that moment. They encapsulated the broader struggle faced by many African Americans who had served their country only to return to a society still plagued by prejudice and inequality. The call for peace resonated with those who understood that the fight against systemic racism was intrinsically linked to the inner battles faced by veterans grappling with PTSD and trauma. As Jimmy looked around at the faces in the audience, many nodding in agreement or wiping away tears, he realized he was not alone. His struggles were shared by countless others. Dr. King's message fostered a sense of community and solidarity that was essential in overcoming despair, igniting a renewed spirit of resilience within both Jimmy and the attendees. This moment marked a turning point not only for Jimmy but also symbolized hope for a future where dignity and peace could be attained together. As Dr. King stepped back after placing his Bible in Jimmy's hands, an almost palpable silence enveloped the auditorium. The audience, previously charged with anticipation and fervor, now held its breath, captivated by the raw emotion that had unfolded before them. Every eye in the room was fixed on Jimmy, who stood there grappling with his pain, while hearts collectively ached for him. It was a moment that transcended words. The gravity of their shared experience hung heavy in the air. The silence was laden with empathy as individuals absorbed the weight of Jimmy's vulnerability and Dr. King's compassionate response. Many in the crowd could feel their own struggles echoed in his heart-wrenching cry for recognition and peace. Faces reflected a spectrum of emotions. Tears streamed down cheeks, brows furrowed in concern, and some nodded slowly in understanding. This heartfelt exchange stirred memories of their own battles against injustice, be it as veterans or members of marginalized communities. As the tension lingered, a wave of solidarity began to ripple through the audience. Some stood up to applaud quietly, while others whispered words of encouragement, It was a silent acknowledgement that they were all part of something larger than themselves. The atmosphere transformed from one of individual despair to collective resolve. Many felt inspired to take action, not just for Jimmy but for all those who felt unheard and unseen. This moment ignited a fire within the hearts of those present. It served as a reminder that they were not alone in their struggles. The connection forged that day would resonate well beyond the walls of the auditorium, igniting movements and conversations around dignity and justice across the nation. For many, this defining moment symbolized hope, a chance to unite and fight for change together, fueled by empathy and compassion. The day after the heartfelt exchange between Jimmy Wallace and Dr. King, newspapers across the nation lit up with headlines that captured the moment's significance. Articles highlighted not only the raw emotion displayed by Jimmy but also Dr. King's powerful message of unity and support for African American veterans. Reports described how this poignant encounter resonated deeply with a diverse audience, reflecting broader societal issues of racism, PTSD, and the struggle for civil rights. Major publications framed the event as a turning point in the civil rights movement, emphasizing its importance in bringing attention to the plight of Black veterans who returned home to face discrimination and neglect. The imagery of Dr. King placing his Bible in Jimmy's hands became an iconic symbol of solidarity, representing hope for those who felt marginalized and unheard. Editorials praised the courage of both men, noting how their exchange encapsulated a shared yearning for dignity and peace amidst a turbulent social landscape. Television news segments showcased footage of the speech, allowing viewers to witness the emotional intensity firsthand. Many people found themselves moved by Jimmy's vulnerability and Dr. King's compassion, prompting discussions about the ongoing struggles faced by veterans and communities of color. The media coverage helped galvanize public support for initiatives aimed at addressing these issues, inspiring many to join local movements advocating for justice and equality. In subsequent weeks, this moment continued to spark conversations across America about the treatment of veterans and systemic racism. Activists used it as a rallying point to emphasize the need for change, utilizing Jimmy's story to highlight broader narratives of resilience and hope. The impact of that day in Atlanta went far beyond a single speech. It ignited a renewed commitment to fighting for recognition and respect for those who had served their country while enduring oppression at home. The moment shared between Jimmy Wallace and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Atlanta serves as a poignant reminder of the ongoing themes of struggle, resilience, and the fight for civil rights that continue to resonate today. This encounter illuminated the personal battles faced by many veterans who, despite their sacrifices, return to a society that often overlooks their contributions and hardships. Jimmy's heartfelt question, "What am I still fighting for?" echoes not only for veterans grappling with PTSD but also for marginalized communities still striving for recognition and equality. In reflecting on this significant event, it is clear how deeply intertwined the issues of race, mental health, and social justice are. Jimmy's struggle symbolizes the experiences of countless individuals who bear the weight of discrimination and isolation. Dr. King's response underscores the importance of collective support and solidarity in addressing these challenges, illustrating that no one must walk this path alone. Today, as we confront similar issues of inequality and injustice, this legacy is more relevant than ever. Veterans continue to advocate for their rights, seeking not only peace but also recognition of their dignity in a society still grappling with systemic racism. The themes articulated in that moment serve as rallying cries for activists today, inspiring renewed efforts to address the disparities faced by marginalized populations. The legacy of that day in Atlanta invites us to reflect on the progress we have made while recognizing the work that remains. It urges us to continue fighting together for a future where dignity is honored and peace is attainable for all, where every individual feels valued and heard. Whether in the context of veterans' rights or broader civil rights movements, the spirit of unity sparked by this exchange reminds us that change is driven by empathy, compassion, and a shared commitment to justice.